What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Happy Memorial Day. Gonna get on here and do this last night, but we had a slew of storms and tornadoes and all kinds of shit raining down on us last night. So I was like, I'm just gonna be safe. Let's move this to tomorrow night. I'm off for Memorial Day, so I hate trying to do streams after I work all day. Um, which is probably why if you haven't noticed, I do most of my shit on the weekend. Um, but I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good, relaxing, safe Memorial Day and a Memorial Day weekend. Um, Living Dead weekend's coming up soon, here in a couple of weeks. Next week on the show, we're gonna have Lawrence DeVincent himself, Romero historian, Romero collector, anything and everything there is to be of of George Romero. I think Lawrence is. So we're gonna have him on next week to talk all about Living Dead weekend, all about George. It's a guy that I've been very aware of for many, many years, and done a lot over the years in terms of, you know, uh, I don't know, that early fandom, kind of discovering a lot of locations, stuff like that. Wealth of knowledge, a wealth of enthusiasm. So I'm really, really excited. I'm very, very happy that he agreed to come on next week and help me break down and get everybody ready for Living Dead weekend. Because it's coming up. It's pretty crazy. We're less than 2 weeks away now. Um, so it snuck up. It's funny every time. It's crazy because every time that I go to Pittsburgh for a Living Dead weekend, which I've done pretty much every year since the first time I went in 2021. Um, every time I leave, it's always just like, man, is this the last time that I'm going to come here? Is there going to be a situation or a circumstance that I won't be able to come back, for quite a while? You never know. And it's always a bummer because I love Pittsburgh. I love that whole area. It's weird, I guess, growing up and watching these films and being so aware of them and being aware of George and then, it's one of those things. It's I don't know if you can really compare it to any other filmmaker in terms of like making a city uh just one big movie set. It kind of feels like at times. Um if you've never been, if you've been once, you know what I'm talking about. But if you've never been, it's like literally, yeah, there's a horror convention, a Romero convention going on at the mall, but you leave the mall and go, a couple blocks either way, you're going to run into something from another movie. Um, so yeah, I'm very, very excited this year. I think it's going to be a really good show, really fun show. Um, a couple more guests have been announced, so that's exciting. I mean, they usually keep announcing people right up to like the day before. Um, so so yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking to Larry next week. Here on the show. It's what is it next? Yeah, June 1st. We're right here on it. Um, but hope everybody's been hanging with me. Sorry about last night. Like I said, storms rolling through. I don't want to take any chances of power going out or internet going out. Which the internet is you know sketchy around here as it is. Um, or God forbid, a tornado blows through and you watch my ass fly out the window or something like that halfway through the raft. So we're gonna watch it tonight. See who's in here so far. Got a few people in here. Synthetic, what's up, man? It is going to be a first timer this year at Living Dead weekend. First time to Pittsburgh. First time to the mall. I'm very, very excited for Synth to finally get to experience all that, and very excited to finally meet him as well. He says, "Damn, gonna miss the first part. No problem, man. I got volunteered for some crap a while before it starts. Well, do your volunteering. Do your good deed for the day." Um, but yeah, I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, like I said, I know it was kind of a spur of the moment thing yesterday, so you probably had something going on today for Memorial Day and whatnot. But I appreciate you stopping in, man. Titanic Discussions, what's going on? That's a name from back in the day. He's been following this channel pretty much since day one. Alpha's channel is a gift to true Romero fans and horror fans the world over. Well, I appreciate that, Titanic. I can't pronounce it, but I'll give you all the same greeting Ben Whitemoon gave Chief Woodenhead. I don't remember how it goes, but we'll just go how for now. But thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. I try to look at myself. I try to look at myself as a Romero influencer. You know, some people get on. You know, they have a YouTube channel or an Instagram or something. They refer to themselves as influencers, which I think is the stupidest name that I've ever heard. But I'll take the Romero influencer thing. Hopefully, my goal is to influence people to discover George and go back and rewatch some of these movies and you know maybe possibly open it up to a younger demographic, although my demographics are not young, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. They got those like things you can check on your YouTube to see like the age range of the people that watch, and we're all pretty much in the same, 30 to 50, 30 to 60 range. Um, so I don't get too many of the young ones. Although I will tell you this story real briefly here before we get started. Um, I just thought it was so cool. So here in Evansville, there's like a collector toy store type of place called Evansville Toys and Games, locally owned. The owners are super super cool people. One time I went in there and I bought what I was thinking was a box, a Blu-ray box set of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because it was in the Blu-ray section, priced as a Blu-ray. Got it home, looked at it, realized it was a DVD, which I already have the DVD for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I took it back, explained the situation, and they were very, very cool. They were like, "Oh man, sorry about that. Go. Do you want money back?" Or I was like, "No, let me just go pick some other stuff." And they switched it out. Hardly, no questions asked. Um, I feel like I'm very glitchy, very jittery here. But anyway, I went by there yesterday, just kind of go. I like to go look around because they have just tons of vintage toys and rare stuff and hard to find stuff. And I just like to go look around. I don't really plan on buying anything, but um, looking around, there's like this little room with all these like really expensive, really vintage toys. And as soon as I walk in, I notice there's an Inspector Gadget figure just kind of propped up on the floor there, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I mean, Inspector Gadget's not really a name that um, a lot of people really talk about anymore in terms of like the old cartoons. But I remember, growing up watching Inspector Gadget. Um, that's my generation. So I'm just standing there, I'm looking around, looking at all this stuff. They got autographed figures and just tons and tons of shit in there. So as I'm looking, I hear coming from outside this little room, I hear the voice of a young kid. He's like, "Oh, they have the Inspector Gadget toy from McDonald's," and I was like, it just took me off guard. A, this kid sounded like he knew what the fuck he was talking about, and B, kids know who Inspector Gadget is these days. So this kid comes running in and he's just like, "Oh wow." He's looking at it and his mom's kind of walking behind him, just kind of there taking it in. And he's looking at it and he's, really just looking it over, and he starts telling her all about it. He's like, "Oh, these were individual pieces that used to come with Happy Meals back in the day, and you had to collect them all and to put it together to build, a full Inspector Gadget figure." And he's going on and on about it, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm sure there's something missing off of it." And he's like, "No, no, it's complete." I mean, he was just a savant about this shit, and I was like, "Holy shit." So he runs out, he goes, and the mother was walking out, and I was just like, "Hey, excuse me, how old is he?" And she just looked at me like she'd been asked this question before, and she was like, "Oh, he's 10 years old, but he's all about vintage toys. Like he knows everything there is to know about any vintage toy. Has no interest in any like newer toys. He has no interest in video games. He just loves old toys." And I was like, "Wow, well, I learned something like just standing here." He taught me something about that Inspector Gadget doll. I didn't even think anybody, any kid, under the age of what, 20 would even know who the fuck Inspector Gadget is. But she was like, "Oh no, he knows all about that stuff." So yeah, I don't know how I got on that topic. I don't remember how we got there, um, but yeah, I just thought that was really cool. I don't know. Yeah, I'm easily entertained by things, but I told her, I was like, "Dude, hang on." I'm like, I might befriend this kid and take him to like flea markets and stuff, and we can make some good bucks together. You can find some expensive stuff for cheap. You know what I mean? Hearst Hill, what's up, man? Good to have you in here, Alpha. You have to go see Goblin. I wish it was worth it. I felt back in time, 1978. Yeah, I would. That's on my bucket list of things to do. When I saw that they were playing, I don't know why. Like I've explained this before, and it's just like one of those things that like I always put off, and it just never works out. Like anytime that Goblin comes to the States to play, it's and anytime they're close, it's always like on a Wednesday night or something like that, and it's like 3 hours away, and it's just it just doesn't work out. Um, but yeah, at this point, it's I got to do it. When I saw that they were doing the concert, playing along with Dawn of the Dead, um, I was like, man, but L.A. What was it? L.A., Austin, and New York. Um, but I did see it was pretty cool. I did see that Savini and Nicotero made it out to a concert. I'm guessing it was the one in New York, if I remember correctly. But I saw that they had made it out there to catch the concert, and I think Eli Roth was there. I think I saw a picture with Eli Roth, Savini, and Nicotero at the concert with Simonetti, I believe. So yeah, I would love to. I'm very, very jealous that you got to. I'm glad that you got to experience that. I'm very happy you got to experience that. But I would be lying if I didn't. If I said I wasn't a little jealous about that. But hopefully one day, seeing the Dawn, them do the Dawn soundtrack like that would be ideal. Um, yeah, I'd love to just see them do anything. Hell. Um, but yeah, a lot of FOMO going on here lately. I don't know. Friend of the channel, Ben Gebhardt was messaged. I think he commented on something earlier talking about the Mahoning Zombie Fest that they had over the weekend, where they played, 35 millimeter prints of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead on Saturday night, and I think last night they played 35 millimeter prints of Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Um, I would have loved to have been there for that. I got to visit that drive-in at some point, the Mahoning. That would have been the perfect time, but you know, you know how it is. Can only be one place at a time, I guess. Let's see. Larry, what's up, man? Good to have you. Good to have you stop by. Thanks for the promotion. Absolutely. It's an awesome video. If you noticed in that promotional video, the voiceover of Adolf Caesar was it AI Adolf Caesar? Maybe the first and only time anybody's created an AI Adolf Caesar. But it's pretty fucking awesome. Good to see you, man. Looking forward to next week. Citadel Sanity, what's up, man? Hey, happy Memorial Day, Alpha. Happy Memorial Day, man. I hope you had a good one. Stukas Dive, what's up, man? Good to have you in here as well. I'm gonna watch a little Creepshow 2 tonight. And we're talking about a little promotion for Living Dead Weekend. I thought we'd go ahead and take a look at the updated guest list as we sit now for the show. We'll go over this real quick. I won't spend too much time on it. Like I said, there's going to be a whole show on that next week. And so we'll really dig in deep next week. And we're going to dig into a lot of shit next week. So, but, a lot around Living Dead Weekend. But so yeah, I just want to take a look here at the updated guest list. They did add some new names. So we go 7th through the 9th. And I noticed earlier that the font on this is the same as my my name font on my thing. It's a very popular font, I gotta say. So yeah, as of right now, of course, Mike Gornick, director of Creepshow 2, DP for George on everything from Martin all the way up to Day of the Dead. Tom Atkins, Fred Decker. Fred Decker is going to be an interesting one because he doesn't, from what I've heard, he doesn't do a whole lot of conventions. So definitely an awesome get there. Excited about that. Greg Nicotero is going to be there. Savini, Howard Berger. Berger's another one that I don't see a lot in terms of conventions. So that's pretty awesome that they got him to agree to come. So that's pretty sweet lineup there. And then the Night of the Creeps reunion with Steve Marshall, Jason Lively, Jill Whitlow, Alan Kaiser. Who else is there from? Maybe I'm missing some here, but yeah, I finally got around to watching Night of the Creeps for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I absolutely loved it. So I was, although I will say the opening with the naked midget aliens or whatever that was, I felt like that in the end could have been just cut out and it would have made the movie, it would, I don't guess it would have made it better, but it would have, it wouldn't have missed anything in my, in my assessment. It was a little like when that first scene where the little midgets or uh, little aliens are running. I guess that's the PC term for a short alien is a little alien. I guess they would probably get offended by the term midget alien. Um, but yeah, that first scene, I was just like, "What? What is this?" But it got so much better. Tom Atkins is really fucking awesome in that movie. We got John Amplis gonna be there, the great John Amplis. That's a big one. I highly recommend stopping by his booth, talking to him for a little bit. He's a great guy, and he's one of those guests, and the best type of guests at these conventions to interact with and talk to are the guests that are fans just like you are. And I dare to say there may not be a bigger fan of Martin than John Amplis. I think, and I love that about him. He loves talking about that movie, um, and his performance in it. Um, Daryl Ferrucci's going to be there, of course, the man behind Fluffy, among quite a few other things. Dan Kamen, of course, played Old Chief Woodenhead in Creepshow 2. Unfortunately, Tom Wright had to cancel for some personal reasons. I hate that he had to miss it because like I'd heard. I mean, he had been kind of one of the like main like most requested guests, which I thought was very surprising, but really cool they got him. But unfortunately, he had to cancel. Hopefully next year, possibly we'll finally get the hitchhiker. Um, Don Harvey from Creepshow 2, Marty Schiff, of course, from Creepshow Dawn, all kinds of all kinds of projects. Daniel Beer from Creepshow 2. Mark Tierno, who plays Beef Treats, zombie Beef Treats from Day of the Dead. Phil Wilson, uh, Creepshow 2, Rick Catazone, Ron Friends. Um, then of course we got the Dawn of the Dead reunion here every year. Joe Shelby, John Rice. That's the big one. I'm so stoked to finally meet John Rice and just pick his brain a little bit and see, you know, because John Rice is just one of those guys that just really hadn't done a whole lot of conventions before now. And then I noticed that he was doing the Weekend of the Dead over in the UK. I guess it was last year, and I was like, wow, they got John Rice. I thought maybe, well, maybe he lives over there. Why would he do, why would he do a UK show and not a? Maybe he just wanted the free, the vacation to England. Which is kind of what kind of the Richard France situation where France is like, hey, I'll bring my wife and we'll have a good time. But yeah, really, really excited to meet John. Sharon Hill, Lenny Lees, Melissa Dunlap, Jim Crutt, Christian Dryden, Tony Booba, another big one that I will not miss out on this time. I fucked around and missed him last year. I'm not gonna do that again this year. Very, very excited to meet Tony. Bobby Van Eman, Patrick Hodge, which is kind of a new name to do. He's going to be there from 12 to 5 Saturday. Tom Dubinsky is going to be there Saturday and Sunday. Another encyclopedia of Romero knowledge. Susan and John Cosgrove played zombies. Of course, she was the one that got the bullet in the head. I think there may be a solo photo of her somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe there's somewhere else. Bill Keys, Dan Bertha, of course, they're there last year. Rosemary Rixey, Gary Marlant, Walt Cravo, Mike Narducci. Easy for me to say. It's a very it's a very East Coast sounding name for a hillbilly from Western Kentucky to pronounce. Mike Narducci, and David Hikes is going to be there. Let me just me so many damn people there. Bill Lasco, Michael Tommaso, Ralph Langer, Dave Gore, Mike Ankus, George Dimmick, John Russo is going to be there. Um, Jerry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name properly. I'm going to make it sound as pretty as I can. Jerry Gergelli. Gergelli? I mean, that sounds beautiful. Sharon Carroll, the first time appearance. This is she's actually featured. I'm actually going to get her to sign my Night of the Living Dead poster that I've gotten signed by, I have one that was signed back in 2008 by George and John and Russ and who else? Bill Heinzman has signed it. Gary Striner, Um, George Kasana. I'm gonna add her signature to it because she's actually on the damn thing. I think that's pretty cool. And there's actually I feel like there's a good story behind her appearing at this show. From a friend of the channel, John Bulo, that I'd love to hear someday. Maybe I'll have him on the channel sometime, and we'll maybe he'll tell that story. But yeah, just a packed lineup, and like I said, they always seem to continue to make guest announcements all the way up until the day of. So I don't know if there's any more in the pipeline, but you never know. All right. All right. Well, let's get to the main event here. Creepshow 2, directed by Mike Gornick, his feature film debut. I think this is the only film that a feature film that Gornick directed. I know he worked on Tales from the Dark Side series on a few episodes. Um, that'll work. Yeah. But I think this is his one and only feature film credit as a director, which I think he does a fantastic job. I mean, w- the thing about and Gornick was, George always referred to him as the answer man, the Swiss Army knife, the guy who could do anything that was needed of him. And yeah, he was DP, but he could also, do so many other things in terms of editing and stuff like that. So I mean, I thought it was a fairly natural transition for him to finally go into uh sit in the director's chair. But yeah, Creepshow 2 is his only feature credit. Um, he did direct a couple. Let me see, a couple episodes of The Winners. Let's see, a couple episodes of The Golden Years in the early '90s. A couple episodes of Monsters. But yeah, in terms of features, that's pretty much it. But yeah, so let me get the video queued up here. Um, there is a link to the video, by the way, down in the description. There is a link to the movie. They actually have it on YouTube, which I was surprised. I was like, you'd think that Creepshow 2 would be one that wouldn't be on YouTube for whatever reason, but it is. So yeah, the link to that's down there if you want to watch along at home if you don't own it. Now, let me see if I can get my screen set up the way I like it here. I'm in a very chill, relaxed mood tonight, so I might take my time here. We'll see. All right, we'll move that over here. All right, that'll work. Works for me. So yeah, if you guys want to get it queued up, if you want to watch along at home, I'll give you just a second to do that. Let me get that off there. Creepshow 2 to me, it kind of feels like, in my opinion, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong about this, but it kind of feels to me like it's one of those films that is kind of aging. It's becoming more and more appreciated as the older it gets, as time goes on. To me, it feels like it's creeping, no pun intended, creeping into that, uh, you know, uh, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, um, Halloween 3, that territory where it was like the movie when it came out at the time didn't make a big splash, really wasn't talked about. Because Creepshow 2 to me, it was one that I waited to see for years and years and years. Like I was just like, Creepshow 2, yeah, I know. I never heard anything about it. It was never like, oh, you got to watch Creepshow 2 now. It's great. And but it seems like here over the last couple of years, I mean, just talking about Tom Wright kind of being, one of the most requested guests at the Living Dead weekend was kind of surprising, is because I mean Creepshow 2 is just not one that was talked about a whole lot growing up. You never really saw much about it. You never really heard much about it. But here lately, I mean, I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's you're seeing a lot more love and appreciation for it now as opposed to when it first came out, and you really see it on like the Creepshow fan pages on Facebook. um, I see people post probably just as much stuff for Creepshow 2 as they do for the original Creepshow. Most of the time, I guess it goes in waves, but yeah, and I think it's warranted. When I did finally watch Creepshow 2 for the first time, um, I was like, "Wow, this is actually not bad. This is pretty good." I mean, I thought it worked. I liked it was shorter. There were only 3 stories. Um, Old Chief Woodenhead's not, um it's probably my least favorite of all the Creepshow stories. It's a little goofy for me, but The Raft and the Hitchhiker are just as good as, as stories from the original. I think it could have fit in perfectly. Um, the Raft so well done in terms of the effects. I mean, just the situation itself. It's such a simple situation, but those are usually the ones um, that work the best when it comes to films and stories and building suspense. And that one really does a great job of that. And then the Hitchhiker's just so much fun. Like it's just so fucking out there. Like, it's so it seems like a concept that a couple of buds came up with when they were drunk one night. It's like, oh, what if we wrote a story about this hitchhiker who wouldn't fucking die? And they tried everything, and by the end, he was just like this pile of meat and was just still asking for a ride. Like it's hilarious, but at the same time, it's just fucking gruesome. So, and there's a lot about Creepshow too that I really really like, and kind of been getting into a lot more here recently. So we'll go through it as we watch it here, but we'll go ahead and get it started. Right now, starting on it's about to pop up the New World logo here. Larry, yeah, AI Adolf. It sounds spot on. It's crazy. I know there was that a little bit of controversy. There's the new Dawn of the Dead Ultimate Monroeville Mall cut or whatever that guy was promoting, and of course I guess he uses AI Ken Foray at the beginning of it. His voice, at least, not physically. Um, I don't know, man. It's creepy how good that technology is already. It's like it's like what is this going to be in 5 to 10 years? Like I think we could be at a point maybe 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even earlier, where we can just fucking create our own movies, put in our own ideas, put in our own script or whatever, and an AI will just make this movie for us that we can watch. We'll all just be. It's like we think we're kind of walled off from everything now. We're in our own little bubbles now. Just wait until we're creating our own AI movies, and that's all we watch is movies specifically designed for us. I don't want to think about it. It's scary. Cressy777, what's up? Love to see your opinion on Video Dead 1987. Even an extremely low, isn't I can't fucking read. Is an extremely low budget film. Yeah, I will check that out at some point. Um, because it's one that I've always been aware of, but I've never seen. Um, I don't think I've seen it streaming anywhere, but yeah, if I can track that down, man, I'll definitely check that out and let you know what I think. Um, because I that's the thing, like low budget, shitty zombie movies. I'm such a big fan of, and that's not says nothing about my appreciation and love for George, but I just love like the Italian stuff, like Hell of the Living Dead, Zombie 90 Extreme Pestilence. I've talked about that one before. That's the epitome of low budget shitty zombie movie, but I fucking love it. It's so bad that it's good. Um, so yeah, I'm always down to check stuff like that out, man. But all right, let's get it going. Creepshow 2, 1987. Link down in the description if you want to watch along. And I'm gonna give the countdown. We're gonna hit play, and then we're gonna be on our way here. So we're gonna go 3, 2, 1. Press play now. And we got New World Pictures, which is one of those companies that didn't last very long. They weren't around very long. Although I remember seeing that logo on all kinds of shit. Hellraiser back in the day. I think Savini ended up signing like a 3 picture deal with them at one point, and I don't guess anything ever really came out of it. I think at one point they were supposed to do Stephen King's Graveyard Shift with New World, and He tells the story. I guess it's on Document of the Dead. And speaking of Savini, he pops up here in just a second. Um, so I guess it's the best time to talk about Tom Savini as any. But he tells a story. I think it's on Document of the Dead, where he's talking about his deal with New World Pictures and how he was all set to do Graveyard Shift, Stephen King story, and they decided not to do it because there were, what was in it, rats or something like that, and the company said, "Oh, we don't want to make a movie about rats. And he wants to go see that." And then he looks in the paper like a week later, and it's like, "Coming soon from New World Pictures, slugs." So it's like, what's the difference? I always love that story. Speaking of the man, here he is. It's one of those you wouldn't really notice behind that makeup. Makeup looks fantastic, though. I do like the creep in this. Turn that volume down a little bit. And Savini's performance, like even just a small performance, small role like this, the makeup and everything, I think his performance is fantastic. 'Cause it's all physical, it's very theatrical, and I don't know, I just noticed that the other night when I was watching it. I was like, "Holy shit." Savini's, like, really getting into it. So now we got the, animation here, and this theme, the theme song here for Creepshow 2 is fantastic. Such a great theme. Great song. It's one of those that gets stuck in my head anytime I hear it. I'll just be walking around going, and it fits perfectly. It fits the Creepshow 2. It's not John Harrison's score for the original Creepshow. The funky bass here. Boom, 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 boom. I think it's fantastic. Boom, 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 boom. Tom Savini as the creep. The story about with Ed French, I don't know. I posted the video of the Nightmares and Foam Rubber documentary on the effects in Creepshow 2. The story about Ed French and Mike Gornick and how Nicotero and Berger kind of got the kind of got took over the gig. It's pretty interesting. I recommend checking that documentary out. What's up, Dirk? Hey now, thought of you the other day. I saw a TV series from Romero out in the wild. Can't remember the name of it. A TV series from Romero. I would have been Tales from the Dark Side, was it? Because he's not technically. What TV series did Romero do? Am I completely out of the loop on that? Or am I just blanking? I know he was supposed to do some, but I guess he ever did. Well, good to see you. Cressy77 says Video Dead is way better than Creepshow 3. Well, I believe you. I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and agree with you on that one. There's not much. There's not many films out there that are worse than Creepshow 3. Because there's not many films out. I can't, because even really bad have sometimes can be entertaining because they're so fucking bad. Creepshow 3 is not that. It's just, you're wondering what the fuck you're watching. To me, the Creepshow 3 is Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Like, I feel like that's the trilogy. It makes more sense, at least. Let's see. Larry says, Everett Burrell did Tom's makeup. He wanted to come to Living Dead Weekend, this show, but we couldn't fit him in. Well, that's unfortunate. I feel like he's done some some Living Dead Weekends before in the past. He was also what's he did the effects on Night 90, Everett Burrell, and I'm blanking on it. I think he had passed away. What was the name of their? I think I may have wrote it down here in my notes. Yeah, I do notes. I'm very prepared. What was the name of their fuck, I don't remember. But yeah, it's amazing when you think of Day of the Dead and all the everything that in terms of effects, like the effects crew and where their careers went after that. There's George Kennedy, who to me I know immediately from the Naked Gun movies, which is funny because Leslie Nielsen's in the first Creepshow. So that's I always thought that was interesting. And if you want to round it out, O.J. Simpson was supposed to be supposed to be in Dawn of the Dead, or originally pitched on. He wasn't. They weren't going that direction, but so a lot of Naked Gun ties to the Romero universe. I will say they do a good job, like making these two characters very wholesome and innocent. So it is a little impactful when the thugs show up. Dirk says, "I see a lot of folks pick 2 over the original, but I just can't, even though the King story, I prefer the OG." Yeah, like I said, that's one like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I feel like Creepshow 2 is kinda creeping into that Halloween 3 territory, where it was, like, panned at the time, but never, uh, you never really heard anybody talk about it growing up, and then it's just been kinda rediscovered here lately. But, I like it. I mean, I wouldn't say I put it over the original. I wouldn't say that, but I think it's very, very good, horror anthology. And really, when you think about it, when you look at, like, Creepshow 2 is probably just as much, a George film, um, as the original. George, yes, did direct the original, but Stephen King wrote that screenplay, whereas in this one, Gornick directs, but it's George's screenplay. George actually wrote the entire screenplay for this one, so George was just as involved in this film uh, as Stephen King, I guess, was involved in the original Creepshow. So we'll put it in those terms. No, it had Romero's name. Oh, Dead Time Stories, something like that. It was season 2. Um, that wasn't a TV show, that was a Romero's Dead Time. I just know Dead Time Stories, they made 2 of those horror anthologies. Um, the Dead Time Stories, not very good films, but George put his name on it. At that time where George, was kind of a name that you could slap on something and try to sell it when, zombies were hot again, Walking Dead was starting, and George had kinda just become like a to me, George had just become like a pop culture icon type of guy. That's it, John Vulich and the company Optic Nerve. There we go. I was trying to think what the name of the company was, and I was like, something about an eye, something with the eye. But yeah, that's it. Um, Stuka says, George Kennedy was great in Cool Hand Luke. I've never seen Cool Hand Luke, I don't think. But yeah, I think that's one like their performance, like it does set up their like innocence and purity or whatever. They're just good, wholesome people trying to make a living and support a town, but so it does kind of suck, when the gang shows up. This was shot in Arizona, actually. Kind of gives it. I mean, this kind of gives it a different look than the original. 'Cause the original, everything was shot in Pittsburgh, and all, you know, quote unquote sound stages, I guess. And I think the one thing that this this film is missing that is one of the aspects of the original that made it so great is the lighting effects and the comic effects around when stuff would happen. There's not a whole lot of that in this, if any, if I remember correctly. It's fairly straight ahead. It feels more like Tales from the Dark Side. Dirk says, "Cool and Luke's one of the best prison films nobody talks about or forgot." Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the film. I've just never seen it. Shaking the Bushes boss. Yeah, that's one I do need to see at some point. Here's some shitty turquoise jewelry. Guard it with your life. Oh, sorry, I'm kind of getting. I like that little performance there. The guy who plays Benjamin. Not sure of his name. But yeah, I think that Dead Time Stories, if that's what you're talking about, I think those are just anthologies. Which is it's an interesting topic. Um, to think about the state of the horror anthology. Like, is that a what do you guys think? Is the horror anthology genre a dead genre at this point? Because there's really no it's unfortunate, but there's really no need for it now with streaming, and they just make it's kind of like the Creepshow TV series. Uh, they could have just made another Creepshow, but instead, why do that? Just make a TV series and put it on Netflix or whatnot. Now, that's not to say that the people aren't still making horror anthologies, because I definitely see them all the time on like Shutter and stuff, like stuff that goes like straight streaming. But in terms of like uh, a theatrical horror anthology, what would be the last one that you guys would think? Because even like Trick or Treat, like I don't remember that having much of a theater run at all back in the day, and that movie's beloved now. Um, but yeah, I don't know what would be the last horror anthology that actually got a theatrical run. Because like I said, there's really no need, there's no use for horror anthologies anymore because it's so easy to put it on streaming and you can make as many episodes and stories out of it as you want. So it's a lot different. It's a whole lot easier nowadays to kind of make an I guess to make a TV series, but to get it distributed, I guess to get it seen by people. 'Cause hell, pretty much every streamer out there is kind of doing the same thing with their own original program. Even Tubi, is Tubi's got their own original programming now, so it's gonna be funny. It's eventually these streaming services are gonna all band together someday and create this one giant streaming service and call it cable. I forget who does that joke, but I think it may be oh, what's his name? Gaffigan, Jim Gaffigan. I think that's a Gaffigan joke. But it's true. I mean, that there was already kind of a version of that now. How? So that's Hal Holbrook's kid. So now the damn ruffians have showed up. If you notice in the background there on the comic the magazine rack, there's a copy of Creepshow comic book. Disgusting. You know the guy. I didn't realize this when I saw the film. It's in one of them I went to the theater to see here not long ago when it was out. But the guy that plays Sam Whitemoon here, um, he's actually in the Iron Claw, the Von Erich movie as Fritz Von Erich. I had no idea as I was. But I mean, I will say his performance as Fritz Von Erich is probably one of the only things I liked about that movie. Um, I thought he did a fantastic job in capturing Fritz Von Erich. If anybody that knows anything about the Von Erich family, the wrestling family, but I had no idea that that was the same guy that plays in Creepshow 2 with the long hair because he's older. He doesn't have the long hair now. Great looking kid here at this with the long hair and stuff. Interesting features too, facial features. I think that's what makes it work. Dirk says, out of both creep shows, what's your favorite segment? I got to go with the crate for me. Uh, Parpo is such a bitch. The crate's great. To me, like, in my opinion, the crate is the one creep show segment out of both films that could have been its own movie, its own standalone movie. They could have fleshed that out and made a feature film out of that. Probably my favorite out of both is probably Something to Tide You Over because I fucking love Leslie Nielsen's performance in that. I love the concept of it, the idea of, burying somebody up to their neck in the sand while the tide rolls in. Just I don't know. The editing in that, and that's the one that was edited by George. So I can spot George's editing style in parts of that one. So that one's it's become my favorite over time. I probably when I first saw the film, my favorite was probably They're Creeping Up on You because that was the one that really made me squirm and I don't want to see that. Um, so I used to love watching shit like that with my mom. My mom can't watch anything that has to do with bugs or creepy crawlies and shit like that. But yeah, I'd probably say Something to Tide You Over. Let's see. Tales of Halloween got a small theatrical run. Okay, I don't guess I've seen that one. Must have been a very small theatrical run. 'Cause I don't recall how long ago did that come out. I'm usually fairly aware of newer horror films when they come out. Not that I go and see them all, but I'm aware of what's out there. Cressy says, Children of the Living Dead 2001, written by John Russo, and with Tom Savini as a main character, main actor. Terrible movie. Yeah. Infamously bad movie. So bad that even John Russo hates that fucking movie. John Russo's like, that movie's a piece of shit. Um, but I will say the first 10 minutes of it with Tom Savini as this ass kicking, you know, guy is fucking awesome. Like I've rewatched it. It's probably been a few years now. I didn't watch it all, but I tried to start it again, try to give it another shot, and it still holds up to me. I don't know. That first 10 minutes was just badass, and then after that, it's just right down into the shitter. That's one I'm probably gonna, talk myself into giving a rewatch at some point and talking about it on the channels here because I love torturing myself. That's a big one. Jimmy G, what's up, man? Good to see you. After Midnight, 1989, but that was cheesy. It had good actors. I guess I've seen that one either. After Midnight. Dirk says Trick or Treat never hit theaters on release. It did later, over a decade though. Yeah, I know they re-released it. Was it last year? Year before last? Had a little theatrical run for Halloween. I do remember that. But yeah, when it first came out, it took me years to even hear about it. I would hear people constantly talk about it. It's like, oh, Trick or Treat, like that's a really good movie. Have you seen that? I'm like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like to me, like I hear Trick or Treat, I'm like, oh, this is some corny ass straight to DVD shit. And you watch the movie, and I was just like, wow, this is a pretty fantastic horror anthology. I'm surprised they haven't done a sequel yet. I guess there's talks of that. There's always been rumors of there being a Trick or Treat sequel coming soon, but and that's the thing with anthologies too is you can make as many sequels as you want, because you're not stepping on any kind of timeline or fucking with any characters or anything like that. So it's kind of the good part about anthologies that I'm surprised studios aren't taking more advantage of now because God knows studios are desperately trying to find any franchise or any sequel or any property that they can exploit and make money off of at this point. Hey, speaking of that, I mean, I saw the new Mad Max movie that came out over the weekend, bombed hard. So that's interesting. I have a VHS copy of Children of the Living Dead. Yeah, that's how I think I rented it on VHS from like a Blockbuster or something back when it came out. And I was so excited. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, because I mean, back then I wasn't too familiar with everybody, but it's like, "Oh, Tom Savini's in this, and it's John Root's the creators of the original Night of the Living Dead." Like, this looks pretty damn cool. And then I watched it. First 10 minutes, I'm like, holy shit, this movie's gonna be awesome. It was kind of like the reverse effect of Day of the Dead for me. Like when I was talking about the first time I saw Day of the Dead last week with Grande. First time I saw Day of the Dead was like the first 10 minutes is awesome. And then I'm like, oh, this is gonna be an awesome, amazing movie, and then it slows down, and but over time going back, I'm like, oh, it is an amazing movie. It was just a different type of amazing movie. Whereas Children of the Living Dead, the first 10 minutes of it, you're watching it and you're like, wow, this might actually be kind of cool for a little low budget zombie flick. And then 10 minutes in, it takes a sharp left turn into Shitsville, and you never steer out. um, but I don't know, maybe maybe when I eventually decide to give it another watch for the channel or and do a review or whatnot. Because I mean, goddamn, I sat through that Festival of the Living Dead shit on Tubi, and that was mod own. Like that, as our friends up in the Northeast say, mod own. That movie was fucking terrible. Like in a it, I don't know. It was terrible in a very modern way. That's the best way I can put it. Anyway, yeah, Barbo. Super Spurg, what's up, man? What time mark? Let's see. Let's see, right around 24:35. I'm about 24 minutes, 35 seconds in right now. They just shot George Kennedy and his wife. Now Sam White Moon's getting ready to head to Hollywood and get laid and get paid. Dirk says, dig 'em all. The King segment is my least favorite of the two films. I love that one too. I mean, I know it's over the top and a little silly, but I mean, I think it's kind of the point. I think Stephen King himself wasn't too happy about that, but that was kind of, George wanted um, that performance out of Stephen just because it is cartoony. It's, Roadrunner, Bugs Bunny, or what is it? The Roadrunner Coyote. Yeah. I watched a lot of cartoons when I was younger, you could tell. Um, but just like that cartoonish, over the top acting, which I think works. People love it to this day. It's so quotable. The meteor shit. But yeah, King wasn't a big fan of that performance. I think he kind of was mad that George stuck with that. Lear's Ghost says wasn't Children of the Living Dead. Wasn't what? Oh, here we go. There's part two of the question. Let me scroll down a little bit. Produced specifically for the director or something like that. Um, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of information on the history of Children of the Living Dead. I know it was written by John Russo. There's some kids involved that were, you know, like children of like Russo and Striner, and I believe I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that or really thought too much about it. But but again, it was just um, one of those movies that were just trying to make a buck off the Living Dead name. Um, and yeah, it was written by John Russo, but from what I've heard from John Russo is that it was, not at all what he intended his script to be. But who knows? Dirk says anthologies probably worked better during the drive-in days and lived on before, like you said, until internet. Yeah, yeah, drive-ins are like the perfect place to see an anthology. But I mean, people like anthologies. Like my fiance, she prefers like if I make her sit down and watch a movie, she likes it when it's an anthology because it feels just like you know, it feels like she's watching episodes of a TV show. She's more apt to watch a TV show for 8 hours at a time than watch a 2 hour movie. So when we watch an anthology, she's more invested in it because she knows that, oh, this is only going to be 30 minutes a piece, different stories, different actors. So yeah, I don't know. Karen Wolf, who made it. Okay, I didn't even know who the hell the name of the director was on Children of the Living Dead. I don't know who Karen Wolf is. It doesn't sound familiar. Yep, old Chief Woodenhead putting on his war paint here. The makeup on this is awesome. And the performance from Dan Kamen's fantastic too. This yell here, look at that yell. It's a sound that like when you've had a little too much to drink and you're hovered over the toilet, hovered over the commode, and you're puking your guts out and you're all out of puke, but you still keep heaving. Yeah, big dry heave sound there from Old Chief Woodenhead. It's effective though. I like it's effective. Works for me. I didn't realize this was Hal Holbrook's son. Um, First time I saw it, there's another connection there between the two creep shows. What is he watching there on that TV? Doesn't ring a bell. No. Great arrow effects. We got to talk about Nicotero and Berger's effects. The work that they did was really one of their first gigs as kind of being the guys in charge. And it's amazing what they became, um, and what they were able to build with K and B. And I think the secret, which watching that documentary the other night, the Nightmares and Foam Rubber, watching that, listening to them talk about it, kind of put the pieces together, kind of made you realize like why they're so successful, why K and B is kind of the industry standard right now in terms of physical, practical effects, and has been for years, and why it is what it is now is their ability to do great work fast. They do elaborate shit, but they're able to do it efficiently, and when it comes, especially in Hollywood, A producer mostly cares that your film is, under budget and on time, like you're on schedule. Um, and those guys just kind of have proven over the years that they know how to get the best, best looking stuff efficiently. And I think that's the secret to it. Honestly, I think that's the secret to the whole thing. I think I talked about this last week in terms of like directors, like Hollywood directors, like a director working on a Hollywood film. Like a lot of the times, if you're a director directing a Hollywood big budget film, you're there pretty much just to keep the wheels rolling, stay under budget, unless you're James Cameron or Christopher Nolan or something like that. Like it's very rare. Like you're very rarely going to see those type of filmmakers in Hollywood getting the money and time that they need to make what they want to make. A lot of the time, it's just schedule keeping. It seems to me. Um, uh, Hollywood will look at you as a good director if you can, keep it on schedule and keep it under budget, and everything's in focus. And you know, so a lot of the times you see these Hollywood directors, like these names of people that you're like, oh, yeah, I've never heard of them, and you look them up and they haven't done much of anything. But that's kind of what you get with a bigger budget, more money. More money. I mean, George has always talked about this over the years. The more money that's involved, the more people that are involved, the more, more fingers in the pie, I guess, is the way you put it. That was a great shot, by the way. I know I'm just sitting here babbling, but that was a great shot of when old Chief Woodenhead's hand comes through the wall, grabs old dude by the hair, pulls him through the wall, and you see that shot over the top there, going from one room to the other in just that one fluid motion. I've always loved that shot. I always thought that looked really good. Dirk said that's why most movies are 3 hours nowadays because of the binge watch craze. I don't see the correlation on that though. Like to me, like it is easier for me to watch 3 hours of a show. Like if I get really like it's very rare anymore. I'm not a huge TV guy. Like, I'm more likely to binge, old episodes of Family Feud or something like that. How awesome was Richard Dawson back in the day? I've been I've been stuck on fucking, Pluto TV Family Feud channel with, Richard Dawson. I'm more apt to watch that for hours at a time than actually get into a show. Um, but I mean, it's easier for me to find myself like, if I like, when I watched The Sopranos for the first time, I was going through watching that, it'd be 4 5-hour blocks. Um But if you told me like, "Oh, here's a 4 or 5-hour movie," I'd be like, "Jesus Christ, like, I'll watch this in 2 or 3 sittings." Um, yeah, but 3 hours for a movie is really too fucking long in my opinion. What is this? I got like an ad or something in the middle of that, but yeah, 3 hours, fuck that. Unless it's a movie that can make 3 hours feel like an hour and a half. Those are rare, but a good movie, you know, can suck you in. But a lot of the times, I feel like a lot of movies just need, a better editor these days. So, Super Spurk says he likes the Chiefs story. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's good. I enjoy it. Um, it's a good opener. I think it's a good opening story. But I do think the next 2 are stronger, but in terms of, scary, I don't know if I would call it scary, but, Guy Endor says, I saw a Family Feud episode the other day with the cast of Gilligan's Island and the Batman TV series. The Batman cast included Vincent Price. Kind of awesome. Wow. Oh, I'd like to see that actually. I like the old Family Feuds that they used to do with like the WWF wrestlers because they'd have like I don't know Shawn Michaels and Papa Shango going head to head, and they're in costume and in character, and I guess they still do that actually. I think I've seen that here pretty recently. I'm not a big fan of the more modern. I think I like Family Feud all the way up until Ray Combs died. I think after that, I was just like, I don't know, man. Any of these hosts. Oh, I mean, Steve Harvey's been really successful with the Family Feud thing, but it's not for me. I'm an old Richard Dawson guy. I just love Richard Dawson. Just smooth gentleman, sorta. Definitely couldn't get away with kissing all the ladies these days. Dirk says, I agree. I took my mom to see Gone with the Wind a couple months back. It's 4 hours, but it had an intermission halfway through. And yeah, that makes sense. Like, hell, I think they had an intermission. I remember when I was a kid and we went to see Titanic for the first time, which Titanic is, it felt like the longest movie in the world back then because most movies were 2 hours at the most. But looking back on it now, it's like on the lower end of movie run times. But yeah, I remember when we went to see that when I was a kid, it had a fucking intermission in the middle. I remember that vividly because I was just like, "Wow." People got up, went took a piss for 5 minutes, and came back. I think that may be the only time I've ever seen that happen with a movie, no matter how long it is. So now we're at the raft, and I think this is a really, really well done episode here. And like I said, it really just boils down to just a very uh, Stephen King-esque story structure or whatever you want to call it of just kind of being stranded in one spot with imminent death are all around you, and how do you deal with that? And I mentioned earlier about the crate could have been one of those that could have been expanded into its own feature length film, but the raft, I feel like this one you could probably with the right writing, um you could probably stretch this out to a feature. I mean, it's basic, kind of just would be what, kind of like Cujo on a raft, I guess. Instead of a dog, it's a big black slime blob, which I heard Savini was not too impressed with the slime blob or whatever. And Nicotero, I think, even said on that documentary he wasn't. It wasn't the greatest looking effect in the world, but I think it works. I think it works fine. And this story does a good job of kind of where the thread is in the background and you don't really notice it or think about it too much, and then eventually it's an imminent deadly threat. It's kind of like I forget the documentary or whatever, but they were talking about George in terms of his filmmaking style on Night of the Living Dead, when the Bill Heinzman zombies, you see him in the background, you don't think too much of it, and then before long, the zombie i- is the main threat of the movie. Kind of the same deal here with the oil slick or whatever you want to call it here in the raft. What do you guys think the blob oil slick is? Alien life form or just awful pollution from those goddamn assholes in big oil? That'd be hilarious if that was. That'd be the M Night Shyamalan ending to this if it were a feature film. They're the survivors rescued out by a a member of ExxonMobil and forced to sign an NDA and paid off $100 million or something like that. I think I just gave M Night Shyamalan a great idea for his next film. M Night Shyamalama Ding Dong. And I think this is effective too. How they don't know that it's a threat, but they kind of have the feeling like you don't want to touch this thing, whatever it is. Nicotera says it just kind of looks like a garbage bag floating in the water, but I think it looks all right. Venom's lazy cousin. I was gonna say Vinny's lazy cousin. It's just a big well of shit. Speaking of well, I watched Silent Rage yesterday with Chuck Norris. You guys have seen that one? Chuck Norris versus the unkillable man. Spoiler alert: he kills the unkillable man because he's Chuck fucking Norris. That was pretty good though. It felt more like like a Chuck like a Chuck Norris slasher at times. Yeah, interesting movie. Am I still live? Internet's being a little funky. Apologize. Like I said, we had some pretty shitty weather come through last night. A lot of tornadoes around us. A couple of towns. There's a town near where my fiance grew up that was hit pretty hard last night. So I don't know if they're having. We didn't lose power or anything. I mean, we pretty much are lucky enough to avoid everything. But yeah, I think this concept would work for a feature film if it had the right script. I don't think this is the best screenplay, or the best story, the best written dialogue. I'll say that. But I mean, it's you know how much is there to say in a situation like this? What is that thing? Chris says Creepshow 2 is just okay in my opinion. Saw the filming locations in the lake still there, but in worse shape. Yeah, you got to remember I mean they filmed this in what 86, 87, so it's like that's the shitty thing about these locations and change is inevitable and time is undefeated. And we just saw um, the naturalizer store in the Monroeville Mall is closing after 40, what was it, 47 years? I mean, it was that store was in there when they filmed Dawn of the Dead. You can see that store in the film, and it was still the same store in the same spot. And they just announced that they're closing. Uh, I guess the owner's retiring after all these years. But same thing with Monroeville Airport and just a lot of these locations that not always going to be there, not going to be there and forever. Now this is some great effects, I think. Great effects work with the black slime that shoots up, and now the stunt double here, that's actually Patricia Tallman, which I didn't realize when I first watched it. But of course, Patty Tallman from Night of the Living Dead '90. She played Barbara. She's in Night Riders. Probably one of the top stunt women. She worked on all kinds of stuff back in the day. A lot of TV. You read all the science books. What is this? Dirk says, "Yeah, funny you say that. I did a review not too long ago. My favorite Chuck Norris. Oh, awesome. My favorite's probably I did like Silent Rage a lot. I thought they did a good job with like the character development with those because I mean that's it's funny to say and it's it's kind of a silly concept, but they portrayed it very well to where you actually cared about the characters that were like the perfect scene or the perfect example of this is the scene um, where the guy, the Jack Kirby's doctor, I think it was that his name, John Kirby, Jack Kirby, John Kirby's doctor goes home after and just talking to his wife. They're talking about what they're going to eat for dinner, and it's like, oh, we're gonna, you want to just get a pizza, are you worried, just kind of the normal routine things that a married couple does. Um, and then the very next scene is, they both get killed by Kirby, and you actually care. You're like, oh, that kind of sucks. But I think it's awesome. But probably I would say my favorite Chuck Norris flick is probably, Code of Silence. I love Code of Silence. Maybe that's just bias because I grew up on that movie. That was one of the first movies I ever remember watching. Um, my dad had a VHS tape that had Code of Silence and, Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, and I watched those over and over and over back when I was real young. But still, I watched it again here recently, and it still holds up. I think it's a pretty damn good movie. One that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, I don't think. Some more great effects work here. When he gets sucked down and that leg fucking breaks and shoots up and he kicks himself in the head, it looks really fucking awesome. Here it comes. Hoo! See, I love that the decision to do that where the leg breaks, just completely, and where he kicks himself in the fucking head and all the ring gag here is awesome. Really smart stuff. Because if he would have just been sucked under, it'd have been like, oh, hey, they got him, or it got him. But when the leg breaks, it just adds that little extra. Ay, really, really nails it home. Dirk says Savini was pissed I didn't get Tallman's autograph or buy his $50 book. Well, Patty Tallman is really really nice person. What was what book was he trying to sell? Was he trying to sell that? I know he did like a Night of the Living Dead 90, the version you've never seen. Was that the one that he was trying to sell you? I've never picked that one up myself. So $50 though, that seems a little steep. But you say Code of Silence is awesome. Lone Wolf McQuade too. Yeah, I love Code of Silence. Stuga says my favorite Chuck Norris flick is Lone Wolf McQuade. Okay, so a lot of love for Lone Wolf. Hersil says my first Chuck Norris film to watch was The Delta Force. Yeah, Chuck, man, growing up, like, and of course he would go on to do like when I was a kid, Walker Texas Ranger. It's huge for a bunch of hillbillies in Kentucky watching Chuck Norris go around Texas kicking ass. Um, Walker Texas Ranger was huge when I was growing up. Like we all watched Walker Texas Ranger. Um, Sidekicks, that's another one that I loved when I was younger. I know Vinegar Syndrome put that out recently. And I haven't picked it up yet because it's like I like Sidekicks. It's been years and years since I've seen Sidekicks. I'd love to watch it again. Um, I'd love to own it. I'll say that I'd love to own it on Blu-ray or 4K or whatnot. But I just can't bring myself to spend Vinegar Syndrome prices on their fucking movies. And it kind of pisses me off in a way because there are titles that Vinegar Syndrome releases that, like Flesh Eater, for one. Bill Heinzman's Flesh Eater. I'd love to own that on 4K Blu-ray. I mean, I think it's a 4K. I'd love to own that and watch it, but I'm not going to spend the amount of money that Vinegar Syndrome asks for these for these fucking titles. Even when they do sales, it's like still $25. I'm just like, I just can't. It's like I'd love to see the movie, but I'm not and I know if you can turn around, sell them for more later when they go out of print or whatnot, but and that's probably the smart thing to do. I think that's what a lot of people do when it comes to Vinegar Syndrome stuff, some of their stuff. Um, but yeah, Sidekicks is just one I would love to see again, and own a physical copy of. I don't know if there's another version out there, but yeah, just going off on a little tirade about Vinegar Syndrome for a second. And that's mainly my main gripe. They do great work. I mean, do fantastic work, in terms of their transfers and the artwork and the packaging and everything they put into it. I give them all the credit in the world for that. But it does suck when there's something that comes out and you're like, "Oh, I've been wanting to see that, but I don't wanna pay $40 to just to watch it." Anywho, the scene in the book is grim. He gets pulled down through the slats and the slats don't break. Ooh, that would be Kurt Komodo. That's new name. What's up, man? Good to have you in here. Um, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, it was the, Night 90 book, Dirt. Yeah, that's I still haven't checked that book out. Stuka says, Charles Bronson versus Chuck Norris. I'm a Chuck Norris guy. Wouldn't never been too big on Charles Bronson stuff. Like I remember watching some of those movies back in the day. Like I remember my grandma had Cold Sweat, which is a Bronson movie. I don't even remember what year it was from, but we used to watch that back in the day on VHS. Um, I think I saw Death Wish once, quite a few years ago. I've only seen the first one. Um, so yeah, I guess I'd be more of a Chuck Norris kind of guy. There says the $10 deals are cool though. I grabbed a lot last time they did it. Yeah, the $10 deals. I do hit those up when they have those. I know I got Argento's Trauma. They did a release of Argento's Trauma. I think I got that in one of the $10 deals. I want to say Chainsaw 2. They released a Chainsaw 2 I picked up on one of those sales. I don't know if it was a $10 sale, but I know it was fairly discounted. Dirk says Bronson's the better actor, though. Yeah, probably. I mean, Chuck Norris was never known as being a great actor. Bronson, I would definitely, in terms of an actor, I'd rank him above Chuck Norris easily. Oh, I love that. I think the raft works so well too because of the slats, like Kurt was talking about. It can still get you even if you're standing on it. There's still openings for it to come up and get you. So there's really no escaping it. You're just kind of doing what you can to bide your time. Yeah, he's gonna swim for it. And this is one of the best one of one of the best endings of any of the Creepshow stories, I think. So now he's in a race against the blob. It's a great shot there. Shooting straight down into the water, watching him swim by, and then the big turd bag floating behind him. And then you think he's out. No, you didn't. Love that. And then this final shot here, the blob floating back out. And a little burp sound effect there for the hell of it. And then it's gonna pan over here to a sign that no swimming. Yeah, the raft that raft is a great one. It'd been a great, like I said, these would have been really good, like Tales from the Dark Side episodes. Now the animation on in this one is a lot different than the animation in the '82 version. I think the animation in the '82 version is probably better technically. Um, and I hear people a lot of the time talk about the animation scenes in this one kind of looking like shit. I don't see it that way. I think it's just a different style of animation. It reminds me a lot of like Saturday morning cartoons when I was growing up. I don't know. I think it works. It's just something a little different. And it's a different concept too in terms of the transitions in between stories. Whereas in the original Creepshow, it's the comic book. The pages are flipping. You're going from shot to shot. I think that's one of the big ways that the original Creepshow works better than this sequel here is because it does make you feel like you're watching a comic book come to life. Whereas this just feels like three stories with a wraparound story about a kid who, uh, who reads the comic books, and of course, the creep here. But so Creepshow 2 doesn't feel as much like a comic book as the first one, I guess. Most, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. I don't know. So now we're on to the Hitchhiker, third and final story of Creepshow 2. Timestamp for me, which this one's fucked up. There's like ads or something going on in this one, so I think so. Basically, I'm starting right now. She's just looked at her clock, and she's waking up in the Hitchhiker, wherever the hell that is. If you're watching along, so I might be a little bit behind. It's kind of got a psycho esque opening here. Yeah, it's a real bummer that Tom Wright was not gonna be able to make Living Dead Weekend this year. He seems like a pretty cool guy. Some of that behind the scenes footage that they did during the filming of Creepshow 2 that was included on that documentary. He seems like got a real good personality, real good sense of humor about it all. And I think he would have been very very popular all weekend long. Um, so I was fully expecting to see a couple of at least at least a handful of hitchhiker cosplay. That's one thing I've never been keen on. I don't like dressing up unless it's Halloween and it gives me an excuse to scare the shit out of people. Um, but man, some of these people when it comes to cosplay, man, they go all out. And it looks awesome, but I just couldn't do it. Being stuck in that costume and mask or makeup or God knows what else. I mean, I've seen people that are being pulled around in boxes for a cosplay. Like I'd just be sitting in that fucking box all day. I watched another good movie for the first time the other day. I watched Cronenberg's Naked Lunch from '91. Never seen it before. I didn't really know what to expect going in, but I ended up really liking it. Like I was very surprised at how much I did like it. It's probably right like if you're asking me now, it's probably up there in my top, 4 or 5 Cronenberg films actually. So I guess she's trying to come up with her alibi here. I like this style of filmmaking. It is very Hitchcockian, I guess. It does feel this opening of this story does feel a lot like Psycho in that she's having the affair and she's on her way back and she's having except instead of having an inner monologue, which, Janet Leigh has in Psycho, she's kinda having an outer, monologue. Who the fuck is she talking to? Yeah, I agree. I agree, Dirk. Naked Lunch as well. Definitely never heard about. Yeah, my fiance walked in and sat and started watching some of it with me the other night when I was watching. And she was just like, "I'm gonna leave because I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. So I'm gonna go watch something else." I'm like, "It's totally understandable." Yeah, it is. It's very weird. It's a very weird movie. Um, but really, it's just a great. To me, it just felt like a great movie about drug addiction. And Peter Weller is in it, of course, played RoboCop. I thought he's really great in that movie. Um, but yeah, it's a weird. It's definitely a Cronenberg film. There's some weird fucking shit in it. Um, but it really is just about the I don't know drug addiction and the creative process. I mean, it felt like, which it is a William S. Burroughs story, so I guess it makes sense. But yeah, definitely like it. I don't think Cronenberg has made a bad film, or Mario Bava. Yeah, I mean, Cronenberg is one that not to say that I love all of his films, but I wouldn't say that he's ever done, like, a bad movie where you're just objectively like, "This movie is not very good." I haven't seen what's that one he did about drag racing? The drag racing movie? It was, like, the late '70s. Fast Company? I haven't seen Fast Company, but yeah, I can't really think of anything that I've ever seen of his that I was just like, "Oh, that was shit." I haven't seen his newest one either. I've heard some mixed things about that one. But I mean, that's just kinda how all Cronenberg's films are. You're gonna hear mixed things depending on who watched it and what state of mind they were in when they were watching it. Sticker says, "Since 1968 doesn't have a copyright, would you be able to do a watch along and, with it playing on screen?" I don't know. I really don't know how that works. I learned the hard way when I first started this channel. I was trying to do a live watch along of Dawn of the Dead. Because I was just thinking, I was like, oh, Dawn of the Dead is available on YouTube. Every version of Dawn of the Dead's on YouTube already. So there's going to be no issue with me, you know, streaming it and watching it live. Wrong. Yeah. I got kicked off and I got my first warning. It wasn't a copyright strike or anything, but it was a warning from YouTube. If you want to go, you know, I think one of the first live videos that's available on my channel now, if you go all the way back, is one where it's just like I got booted, and it's just me like frustrated, like, "Oh, the world is against me. All I want to do is talk about George, man, and YouTube's keeping me from doing it. Fuck YouTube." So yeah, I don't know how that would work. I don't want to try it. I skate along on fairly thin ice a lot of the time with some of the stuff that I put up in terms of getting copyright strikes and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to push it too far. That is a good question, though. Kurt Komoda says, "I like Naked Lunch, but the rubbery effects hurt it, especially the terrible Julian Sands centipede." Yeah, there are the talking asshole, I guess is the best way that I could put it. Um, I thought that led back, but again, it's just it just the effects are a little rubbery at times. Um, yeah, the Julian Sands centipede, but overall, I'd much rather watch that than CGI. So I'm the wrong guy to talk about that. I'd rather watch bad practical effects, every day of the week over CGI. It just takes me out of the movie. Like I'd rather just I have to know that the object is in the room being touched by a physical actor, like or it's just like, oh, now I feel like I'm watching fucking Roger Rabbit or Space Jam or something. So we've started the process of running this hitchhiker over and killing him multiple times. So she thinks she's gotten away with it. Now I don't know how that plays for some people. I know some more casual film viewers when they see somebody talking to themselves on screen as much as she is, it have heard from some people that it has a tendency to take them out of the film. It's just like why would you just be sitting there talking to yourself like that the whole time? Um, so I think in those terms, the use of an internal monologue is probably a better way to go. But I think for something like this, for like Creepshow 2, I think it works fine because, you know, talking to yourself is something crazy people do, and she's kind of going crazy. So I think it kind of works in that way. Although I talk to myself all the time, so, so I don't know what that says about me, but whatever. Dirk says, I think he's back to form with Crimes of the Future. Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, that's the one I haven't seen yet. I like Brandon Cronenberg's stuff quite a bit. I wasn't the biggest fan of Infinity Pool, but Possessor, I think Possessor's fucking brilliant. But a lot of people left the theater. I heard, and that's a good sign in my book. Yeah, that was the thing before that movie came out. I remember hearing the rumors where people were leaving within the first 15 minutes of the movie. I don't know. It's kind of a surreal type film anyway. Yeah, in terms of the effects. It had to me, it had the feeling in a completely different way. It had the feeling of like Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, kind of the way that the creature, you know, comes to him and talks to him through things. It kind of gave me those vibes a little bit, which I guess Cronenberg would have been the first to do that, and then Del Toro's would have been later. Dirk says, "Have you seen Baba's anthology film Black Sabbath, 1963?" I have not. I believe it or not, I have not seen Black Sabbath. Bava is one of those filmmakers that I'm very behind on. Um, I've seen Baron Blood, I've seen Bay of Blood, I've seen Blood and Black Lace. Um, there's probably one or two others that I've seen, but in terms of going through his entire filmography, it's one that I'm a little behind on, to be honest with you. But Black Sabbath is definitely one that is on the list, which I think it was in was that the one that was on sale from did Kino do Black Sabbath? I can't remember. But I feel like I remember putting it in my cart and then waiting too long and then I just never got it. But that's one a lot of people talk about a lot. But yeah, Baba, I mean I like Baba from what I've seen, but Like I said, it's just one of those filmmakers that I haven't seen a whole lot of. Although I did just pick up the Arrow Blu-ray release of Blood and Black Lace. I didn't own it before that. Um, that was a really inspiring movie for me when I was younger. When I first saw it, I just loved the concept. Like I was in a band at the time when I first saw it, and ended up naming a wrote a song and named it Blood and Black Lace. Hey, Synth, what's up, man? Hope you've had a good Memorial Day, my man. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Eric says Kino. Yeah, that's where I was. I think Kino, they still having a sale. I might have to go in there and check. But yeah, that's one I definitely need to check out. Bay of Blood, since first Bava. Yeah, I think that was my first Bava film I saw too. I love Bay of Blood. I think that's, of course, was kind of what inspired, Friday the 13th. Although, you know, Friday the 13th creators refute that and say they, who was it? Was it Victor Miller who said, "Oh, I've never heard of Bay of Blood. I've never seen Bay of Blood before." Was it Victor Miller or was that Sean Cunningham? I can't remember. But yeah, Baba was one of those that I discovered right around the same time I discovered Argento, because it was I want to say 2001, 2002, when the IFC channel was doing the Italian Screams for Halloween that year, so they were playing all Argento and all of Bava stuff. I think there was a documentary on there too about Bava. But I think at that time I just became so much more infatuated and so much more interested in what Argento was doing that Bava kind of got put on the back burner. I didn't really dig into it as much as I probably would have if it was just a Bava um, film festival or whatever you want to call it on IFC that year. Um, but I was just so like Argento's probably my second favorite filmmaker of all time. It's between him and Kubrick, and then depending on like if I watch a Kubrick movie, sometimes that'll switch and back and forth. Which I just watched Stendhal Syndrome for the first time. I didn't remember hardly anything about it, but I swore I've seen it before. But I watched it again for the first time in quite some time, if ever, um, here recently, and I couldn't get through it. I was just like, I don't get this movie whatsoever. So now I feel like if I go and rewatch 2001 or something like that, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's Kubrick. But yeah, I just became so fascinated by Argento. So I'm here to talk about Argento and Bob and all this, and this poor fucking hitchhiker's just getting mutilated. That's the thing about like this story. There's not, and that's kind of the comedy of it. That's what's funny for me is that he just keeps getting fucking run over and pulverized over and over and over again in such a ridiculous over the top way that it makes this it's fun. It's not as because she's losing her goddamn mind. And he's just like this annoying hitchhiker who just won't leave her alone. I don't know. It's such a goofy ass concept, but it's so funny. That was the thing about Naked Lunch too that I was fascinated by is that it's so fucking disturbing and so weird, but at the same time it's absolutely hilarious. Like I was laughing out loud at parts of it. Dirk says Lisa and the Devil is my favorite Bava. So damn good. Has Telly Savalas in it. Yeah, I have not seen that one. I'm gonna need to get your recommendations on Bava. So when I finally do get around checking him out, you'd be the guy to know. Uh, since we had a few We had a few great mom and pop video stores in the 80s nearby that had all of these obscure Italian films and independent things. Yeah, those were just dying out as I was coming into my coming of age. But we still had a couple where I grew up, and that's where I discovered so much of the movies that I like today. Like a lot of the like Italian and just low budget shit and that was the cool thing about going to video store back in the day. You didn't really know too much about it. You just would kind of pick it up, look at the back, read the description, look at the pictures and say, this looks pretty good. And you go home and try it. And a lot of the times it was shit, but sometimes you'd come across some gold. Like perfect example is when I rented it was on VHS at this little shitty mom and pop store, the 5 movies for 5 days for $5 kind of deal. And I found City of the Walking Dead, aka Nightmare City, on VHS, and I was like, it sounds like a zombie movie. I'll check it out. Watched it, and I was like, it's one of those movies that you were just watching, and just like, what in the fuck is this? This is like just so out there, but so like technically, like that's the thing about Italian films to me, and Italian films specifically because they have their own. There's something about them. There's their own flavor that even a bad one is still enjoyable to me. Like there's just a vibe to it, there's a feel to it, and it sticks with it. It just feels like another world almost. Um, anyway, Dirk says for me it's Kubrick first, then Bava, then Fulci, then Argento. Interesting. You got Fulci ahead of Argento. Yeah, mine would be George, obviously number one. Argento probably two, Kubrick three. Then after that, it's just a mishmash of I'd have to really sit down and think hard about that one. Since a Stendhal is tough to watch, prefer old Argento in a big way. Yeah, I absolutely prefer old Argento, but I was kind of surprised that I didn't care for Stendhal syndrome as much as I did. I didn't like it at all because I am more forgiving to Argento's newer stuff. Like I do like quite a bit of his newer stuff. Like I enjoyed Mother of Tears. I think Mother of Tears is a very underrated movie. The Card Player. I think the Card Player is underrated. Giallo. I mean, the movie Giallo gets such a bad rap because of everything that happened with Adrian Brody and whatnot. But even that one, I was still just like, we're living in Argento's world here. It may not be technically perfect or all that, but it's still, it's still Argento. Um, so yeah, there are very few Argento films that I just do not like. Trauma is probably one of them, even though I was just talking about buying it, but it was $10. Um, but Trauma is one that I've just never been a huge fan of, and Stendhal syndrome is just one that I just don't like. I just did not care for it. Dirk said he had to watch Stendhal 3 times before he loved it. Maybe, yeah, maybe that's what it'll take for me. But yeah, just I got into it. I was in the right frame of mind for it. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. And I was liking some of the stuff that was in it. I was like, okay, I like the sound effects and the sound mix here and what I see what Argento's trying to do here. But man, as it went on, it was just like the bad CGI, the bad mid 90s CGI really took me out of it. I tried to ignore it. I tried to just put it into its proper context, but I couldn't get over it. Um, And just the story itself just did not I was not compelled by it whatsoever. I just didn't care. I didn't know what was going on, what was happening, and I didn't care. And at that point, I was just like, maybe this movie isn't just for me, but I don't know." Yeah. "Thanks for the ride, lady." Box artwork made a huge difference, just like with some albums. Yeah. And that was the thing, like, there was such great, like, box artwork on the VHSs back in the day that you'd always find something, pick it up, and be like, "Oh, man, this looks like the fucking coolest thing ever," and then you'd watch it and be like, "This is not at all what I was sold. This is not at all what I was expecting." I love I love that the hitchhiker in this state, he's been run over and obliterated so many times. He's literally just a tongue wagging, and it's fucking hilarious. And I believe Tom said that he was in control of the hitchhiker puppet there. Synth timestamp. I'm right near the end. We've got about I'm at right about 7 minutes left on this. So right at the end. I'm right at about, which I'm a little bit behind, I believe, but I'm at 126:31. I had an ad pop up randomly. Whoever posted this on YouTube. Uh, Since you say Nightmare City's great, the score and the terrible dance show in the movie, some really bad dialogue. Yeah, but I love it. I love that stuff in those old Italian flicks. It seems like they were really fascinated with dance TV shows because didn't they have something similar to that? And was it Demons 2? I think there was some for some reason in Italy they love people in leotards dancing. That's their main source of entertainment on television in Italy back in the 70s and 80s. Stika says the box art for DEFCON 4 was epic. The movie is still cool, but it's nothing like the cover. I don't DEFCON 4. I don't remember that one. But yeah, there's so many examples of that where you'd pick up the artwork and just think that you're about to watch the greatest movie ever, and then you turn it, you put it in, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? This is not what I bargained for. Dirk says initial watch, I hated Stendhal, and the CGI was a big part of it. So yeah, maybe I just need to give it some time and give it another watch at some point. I own it, so I can watch it whenever. But yeah, it just maybe I'll wait a little bit and give it another shot. Now that I kind of know that the bad CGI is in it, so I can kind of prepare myself to ignore it the best possible. Some of the worst dialogues in Hell of the Living Dead. I'm a tit man myself. Probably my favorite piece of bad dialogue in an Italian zombie flick is Zombie 3, which was partially directed by Bruno Mattei, the guy who made Hell of the Living Dead, or Vincent Dawn as he's credited. But it was also technically Fulci's last film, I believe. Before, no, he didn't die in the making of that. I think he just fucking quit, didn't he? Dirk, you probably know more about that. You're a big Fulci guy. Did he quit halfway through Zombie 3, or did he pass away? I don't remember the story of that. But my favorite bit of dialogue from that movie, it's so stupid, but it's hilarious, and I quote it to this day. Is there these like soldiers driving this Jeep down the road, and they're dancing, listening to music, and it's just so corny. And this one character is just like, yeah, this song's happening, man. And the guy in behind him just like, yeah, it makes me horny. I'm like, who talks like that? Like, who the fuck would say that? You're hanging out with your guy friend, you're just like, yeah, man, I'm so horny right now. It's like, okay, dude, we're gonna pull over, you can hop off. Uh, it's just such a random. It just seems like a bit of dialogue, which it may have just been thrown in from the goddamn um overdubbing or whatnot, because they'll tend to do that. But it just seems like something that they would write, just be like, "This is how Americans sound." They just go around screaming about how they're horny. But I love Zombie 3. I still love that movie. So, all right, there's the credits. That was Creepshow 2 from 1987. As we see Tom Savini as the creep throwing copies of the comic book. And this is a great shot to end it with. You see the truck driving all the way down this road, and Savini continuing to throw these comic books. Big time cleanup here. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Creepshow too. I've gotten more and more into it, and I think with the Creep year and Living Dead weekend stuff coming up this year, uh, got me more interested in looking into it and watching it a little more. And digging into it a little more. I think it's a solid. I think it's a solid sequel to the original. Go ahead, put an end to that. All right, let me get Windows back aligned here. All right. Let me get back to the comments. Yeah, cameramen in lab coats. Yeah, in Nightmare City. Yeah, I always wondered what that was about. Didn't understand that one. I was like, maybe that's just a European thing. I'm just not understanding. Murder Rock. Uh, Stuka says at my video store as a kid, Hell of the Living Dead was actually called Night of the Zombies. Yep. Since the DEFCON 4 movie is funny, since DEFCON 1 is the actual missiles flying, not 4. Oh, you're talking about like in real life? Okay, so Fulci was sick during the making of Zombie 3. Makes sense. I guess Zombie 3 is one of the worst in many ways. The flying zombie fridge head, yeah, that's the classic scene. I think a lot of people remember from Zombie 3. I just like Zombie 3 too. I mean, it's just weird. It's like a weird setting. It looked like it was shot in the Philippines or something like that, which I know Bruno Mattei would go on to, because he would do more zombie movies after that, like the late '90s, early 2000s, I think, where he was shooting in the Philippines. So I don't know if he was filming some of that stuff in the Philippines at that time, but it definitely looked like it. Yeah, Savini hamming it up. But like I mentioned at the beginning, I know you weren't here for it, but I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of dig Savini's performance as the creep in this. It is very theatrical and over the top, but I mean, he's got the makeup on, but he does a good job of like portraying that character. You wouldn't really know it was Savini underneath that unless you looked it up first. The animation of Creepshow 2 is my least favorite thing, but fun otherwise. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier too. It's definitely not as good as the animation in the original Creepshow for sure. I'll give you that, but it's never bothered me. It's never really bothered me, to be honest with you. It's just a different, to me. It just felt like a different style of animation. It felt more like a Dennis the Menace, or like those Saturday morning cartoons back in the day. It's kind of what it reminded me of. Or like, you remember those, like when I was a kid, they had those weird, like short-lived Saturday morning cartoons based off of successful movies. Like they had Ace Ventura. They had an Ace Ventura cartoon. They had a Mask, a cartoon for the Mask. I even think they had a Dumb and Dumber cartoon for a short period there. I think very, very short period. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what that animation reminds me of. Dirk says Creepshow 2 is solid. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good word for it. Is solid. I mean, it's a very solid anthology film. Um, I've seen much worse. Creepshow 3. If you want to see a bad anthology film, Creepshow 3. Um, since I saw it as a Night of the Zombies too. Yeah, I think the first time I saw it, it may have been Night of the Zombies. Or no, there was a third title to it, wasn't? Was it Zombie Creeping Flesh? Is that Was that a third title for that, if I remember correctly? Yeah, I don't remember. It may have been Night of the Zombies. I think that was the American title. So that probably was when I first saw it. Larry says maybe in June after Living Dead weekend you can do a walk along with Creepshow 3. I don't think so. Although I don't put it past me. That'll be the only way that I'll watch that movie again, is if I do a live watch along and just talk shit about it the entire time. I wouldn't even do that. There's nothing really even to fucking talk about with that movie. It's not even any. It's not. There's nothing interesting to discuss about that movie. It's just like, yeah, there it is. Never wanna see that again. Or as some as as opposed to seeing like the Booby Hatch or something. Like, no, it's not a great movie, but it's entertaining. There's stuff to talk about. Um, yeah, I'd much rather do like a watch along of Dead Time stories. Eric was talking about. Give that another shot. Derek says Zombie 3 is fun as hell. I agree. Since Savini acting in The Ripper was really over the top, the movie is really bad, of course, like cable access stuff. Yeah, I noticed that. I saw that Vinegar Syndrome, I think, is putting that out. It just announced that that's coming out, and I think for a long time there, like Savini didn't want to talk about The Ripper and really want anything to do with it. So that'd be interesting. It'd be something interesting to ask him. Maybe he's lightened up on it over the years, kind of like Galen Ross and Madman. But um, Biohazard, was that a alternate title to that? Hell of the Living Dead might be. Since I can't remember show 3, probably a good thing. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I don't really remember too much about it either. I just remember it being really, really bad, and something I never plan on watching again. But yeah, that's pretty much my recollection. It's probably a good thing. And sometimes that's worse. Like that to me, that's the worst type of movie. I'd rather watch a movie and leave with some kind of strong opinion on it, whether it's I loved it, I hated it, I felt this way or that way about it. But just watching a movie and then when it's over, it's just like out of your fucking mind. Like the Festival of the Living Dead, as I mentioned earlier, perfect example of that. Although I feel like I hate that one a little bit more than Creepshow 3, just for some of just the stupid shit that's in that movie. So at least it made me feel something. It made me feel irate, more so than anything. I've watched Tombs of the Blind Dead. I have not. Those are I've never seen like anything I'd be interested in checking out. Just never grabbed my attention where I was like, oh, I gotta. And it's like it's one of those films that like a lot of people really don't talk about that movie or any of those movies. Like I've always heard that title, Tombs of the Blind Dead, but yeah, outside of that. Since saying Tombs of the Blind Dead's cool. Yeah, maybe I'll check it out. Like I said, one thing I do enjoy, one of my favorite things about doing this channel is discovering new shit. And hearing you guys' opinion and stuff and inspiring me. I talked earlier about being, a Romero influencer. That's just kind of a joke, tongue in cheek type of thing, but I think that's just what we do. I think that's a good thing. It gives us an outlet to kind of influence each other to check out new things and to see things in different ways. Like that's what I enjoy doing about this channel. Funny to hear Lindsay act like Nightmare City was meant to be played straight. Like the fucking yeah, I remember watching that documentary because I own who put that out on DVD. Where is it? Yeah, Anchor Bay DVD. I think that there was an interview with Lindsay on that where he was talking about, yeah, people always try to. I don't know. I can't do his accent. I think it was overdubbed anyway, if I remember correctly. But he was just talking about like, oh yeah, people like to say like, oh, it's a ripoff of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead, and it's like, no, I went about it, completely different direction. Like these people, they're not zombies, they're infected people, and I think I came at it from a serious point of view, whereas those other movies came at it from kind of a goofy point of view. Just paraphrasing what he was pretty much saying, but kind of saying like, oh yeah, this is a serious look at, what would happen in this situation, and I'm just fucking seriously. Okay, I'm glad you feel that way about it. You should feel that way about the film, I guess, but for real, just stay away from Necromantic 1 and 2. Yeah, never seen any of those. Don't think I will. I'm turned like when I was younger, like when I was a teenager or in my early 20s, like I would watch any fucking thing. Um, I the older I get though, I'm getting soft, guys. I can't. Some of that stuff, like that August Underground shit, and like there's just certain films that I just get a bad vibe about, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to watch that. It's gonna it's gonna fuck me up for days. I used to look for that. I used to stick that shit out when I was younger, but I think just I'm getting old and soft and got I don't know, but if I watch the wrong thing, I'm just fuck it's stuck in my head for days at a time now. So yeah, I try to avoid some of that stuff. Whereas back in the day, I would have been like, oh, you know, a snuff film. Let's watch. Like when people talk about like a Serbian film and those type of movies, I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I got no. Even as you know, a guy who likes film, I have no interest in subjecting myself to that. Even though you hear people say, "Oh, but there's a meaning to it and there's a reason," but I'm just like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." Lindsay Must Be Nuts. Nightmare City is one of the funniest movies. The guy standing in front of a moving car at the TV station, waving a knife in a threatening way. Oh, the funniest fucking part of Nightmare City, and it's not even close. It's the when I first saw it 25 years, whatever, not 25. How fucking old am I? 20 years ago, I'll say. Just be kind. First time I saw it on VHS, the funniest fucking part of that movie is at the end when they're trying to climb the ladder to the helicopter and the woman falls and there's just this shot of this dummy like falling and hitting this roller coaster, hitting every beam on the way down, but it's obviously a dummy and this scream, just this one prolonged scream over while she's hitting every piece of this roller coaster on the way down. It's so goofy looking, but it's so fucking hilarious. But that's another aspect of the movie that I liked, the fact that they were in an abandoned amusement park, um, that actually looked like an amusement park that somebody that they were just there the day before type of thing. Um, so I loved that's one aspect of Nightmare City I do love. I love the settings in it. I love some of the locations. The church, that big weird fucking church out in the middle of a field. Like again, it goes back to like, oh, this is oh, Italy must be a different fucking world. Why is this giant church out in the middle of nowhere like this? Like it's so eerie and so creepy. And it's the same with most Italian films. That's one of my favorite aspects of Italian films is the locations and the settings. Especially a lot of Argento stuff, which Argento stuff is more like as opposed to like some of Fulci's stuff and some of like Lindsay's, Nightmare City, Hell of the Living Dead, some of those locations, which Hell of the Living Dead was mostly jungle or whatnot. But I love the power station that they get to, the big power station. It looks like a fucking power station. Um, but it's just like this weird, I don't know, there's just a weird flavor to it all. But they still feel legit. Like the gas station or whatever in Nightmare City that they stop at. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm attracted to weird aspects of movies. Since the Space of Death was big when I was a kid, most of it staged anyway. Yeah, that was one that I watched when I was younger because that was one that I always heard my parents talk about. I was like, oh, my parents were cool. Like they were like, oh, you can watch whatever. You're into horror movies. You can watch this, and this. Like, hey, check out this. But Faces of Death is always one that they're like, oh, you don't want to watch that. You don't want to watch that. So the first opportunity I get to watch it, of course, I'm going to watch it. Um, and I was just like bored with it. I was just like, I don't get it. Like, it didn't have any effect. The only thing I remember about it is the monkey and the monkey brains. And that was just kind of like, what the fuck? But for the most part, I was just bored with it. I didn't, I never got the hype behind it, I guess. But yeah, it is funny. I mean, my parents were completely convinced that it was all real. Um, but I mean, I will say they did a very good job of staging it and making it look real. Yeah, dummy at the end. Dirk says same on Serbia, no interest whatsoever. Yeah, I just uh, I've heard about it, and that's enough for me. Um, the roller coaster, it's so entertaining, so goofy. Since that the box said the zombies need transfusions, but when you ingest blood, it's no longer blood. Uh, oh, for Nightmare, so yeah, because yeah, and they're basically just going around drinking blood of people and I don't know, they try to explain it some way. Oh, I will say the interesting thing is when I visited the Romero archive in Pittsburgh last October when I was up there, I got a chance to read the original Dawn of the Dead screenplay, or the first draft treatment or whatever you wanna call it, that George did in the early '70s, and, to me, reading it, it felt more like A Nightmare City as opposed to a Dawn of the Dead, for good or bad. But just some like the way that the zombies behaved in the original screenplay, and there was like a head, like a lead zombie with a missing eye, and all the way that it was written, it kind of reminded me of Nightmare City, for good or bad. Like I said, stay away from traces of death. Yeah, I've heard about that one too. I don't think I'd be checking that one out. Although I have heard they're supposedly remaking Faces of Death, whatever that's going to be. Um, I'm guessing it'll probably be something like people on their phones, like phone foot or something. I don't know, but yeah. Since once the internet came about, Faces of Death was passe. Dan's Gallery of the Grotesque was a wild site. Oh, dude, we used to get on all those fucking weird sites. Uh, efucked, rotten.com, like we used to like just to test ourselves, like when we'd hang out in us in my early 20s, and we'd just stay up all night and just fucking drinking our asses off on the computer, just looking at all this shit and like almost daring each other, just like, okay, how long can you watch this type of thing. Yeah, well, back in the day, it wasn't a big thing for me. Now it's just like, I got better things to spend my time and energy on watching. Is it difficult to get into the Romero archive? No, it's really not. Basically, what you would do, and I'd recommend checking it out at some point. You have to go to the website. You have to shoot an email to Ben, who's in charge of the archive over there. Especially email him, tell him who you are, and say, "Hey, I'd like to schedule, a time to come look at some stuff." Tell him what you want to look at, because they have it all listed there on the website, and you can pick like, okay, I want to look at this, look at this, look at this, so he could pull it for you, and then you just show up at your appointed time. They sit you down in a room, um, and they pull it all out, and you can just kind of go up and pick and choose what you want to look at, what you want to read, and yeah, I mean, it's the hardest part is finding a fucking place to park. Um, that's the hardest part that I discovered while I was there. I got a fucking parking ticket because I was just like, "Hey, here's a parking garage. I'll just whip it in here and park." Because I was running late. I was like, "I can't be late for this." So it'd be like, "No, you can't come in." I'm like, "No, fuck this. I'm parking." Ended up getting a $35 parking ticket, but it was totally worth it. Worth every dime. Cool lot, man. Gotta head off. Take it easy, everyone. Good to see you, Dirk. I appreciate you stopping in, man. Everybody check out Dirk's channel, Subjective Perspective Collective. Does a lot of really, you want to talk about Fulci and some Italian and some Giallo, and that's the guy that you want to, that's the guy you want to check out. So check him out over there, Subjective Perspective Collective, um, here on the YouTubes. Synth Rotten was a weird mix of medical stuff, death, and odd porn. Yeah, quite shocking as you get surprise slideshows of mixed terrible stuff. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, Rotten E fucked was the big one. That one was kind of like the weird porn that you'd just watch and be like the two girls one cup type of shit. And you'd be like, okay, guy, all right, look, all right, we're watching this one. Fuck it. And then you watch it and it's just like fucking seared into your brain and in your memory for the next 15 years. Changed my life. Uh but yeah, it's been fun tonight. Enjoyed watching Creepshow 2 and hanging out with you fine folks. Like I said, I will be back next weekend. We're going to have a very special guest, Lawrence DeVincent, Romero historian, Romero collector, the man in charge of the mall tours and all the other tours that he does, and all the work that he puts into Living Dead Weekend every year. We're going to have him on next week to discuss Living Dead Weekend, break it all down, talk anything, everything Romero. It's look, Larry's a guy that I've been looking forward to just having a long term, or not long term, but long form is the word I'm looking for. It's getting late, guys. Long form conversation with about George and conventions in general, Living Dead weekend. I mean, this guy's been doing it for many many years, and you probably recognize him if you have the Between Night and Dawn set that Arrow put out with Vanilla and Season of the Witch and the Crazies. He has quite a few featurettes on those as well, in terms of shooting locations and stuff like that. So really really looking forward to getting him on next week and chatting it up with him and getting you guys all the information you need if you have questions or anything you want to know about the convention. Larry's the man to ask, so we're going to have him on next week to do that, and we'll get you guys all hyped and set and ready to roll. Because Synth, I know you're going to be there. Anybody else, let me know. If, like I said, if you're going to be there, I talked to Ben earlier. He's going to be there. Ben Gebhardt, a friend of the show. If you see me walking around, come say hey. I'm be super happy to meet you guys at some point. Did that last year, Living Dead weekend, and in October met a couple of guys that discovered me, discovered Living Dead weekend through me and all. So it was cool to finally you put faces to these names that you hang out with every weekend. Uncle Mark, what's up, man? I watched Two Girls, Two Cups, One Girl. boy, was I disappointed. Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Good to see you. Um, Two Cups, One Girl. See you, Stugas. Yeah, Larry says should be fun. Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Kirk Komoda, good to see you in here, man. Good stuff, by the way. Good point about practical versus CGI. Good night. Yeah, that's the constant battle. Like even good CGI to me is there's just nothing like good practical effects. Says I need to watch replay. Thanks for the stream. No problem, man. Check it out. Ow! When you get a chance. I'm sorry. I think I've got a bug bite on my fucking leg. Something's going on down here. Anyway, they're creeping up on you. They're creeping up on me. All right. LDW be a blast. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to you getting. This is your first chance to see and experience everything. So looking forward to being around for some of that. Hill, thank you, Alpha. See you next week. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. Same to you, Hers. Uncle Mark saying I had to drop in for a minute. Well, you're always welcome. You're the reason that I'm doing this. So I've told that story and mentioned that before on here, that you were the first one to say, hey, there's this movie called Dawn of the Dead I think you might like, when I was 10, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And who would have thunk it? Hurst, good night. Cynthia, is the school used for Creepshow 1 still around? I don't know. I'm guessing so. I don't know. That'd be a perfect question for Larry next weekend. So, all right, I'll write that down. We'll let you know. Okay, here you go. He's already answered it. It is sent. So this is what you're going to get live and in person next week, folks. So tune in for that. Looking forward to that. But all right, guys, you have a great rest of the night, a great rest of the week, and as always, stay scared.